So, have you ever met someone who proudly says, I'm a very practical person? They don't dream too big, they don't take unnecessary risk, they do what's safe, what's proven, and what's logical. And yet, deep down, they are stuck. They're not excited about life, they don't feel fulfilled, they're just surviving. Now, here's the paradox. What if being too practical is actually very impractical for most of us? Because sometimes the safest route is not what takes you to your dreams. And sometimes the safest route keeps you exactly where you are. Like from a very young age, we are taught to be practical. Don't chase dreams, chase stability, be realistic, think about your future. And of course, practically, it has its own place. We do need logic, we need planning, but somewhere along the way, we have started treating emotions, risk, and intuition as enemies for practicality. But this isn't true at all. And that is why we play safe. We say no to things that make us feel uncomfortable. Not because they are wrong, but because they are unpredictable. We choose jobs we don't love because they pay on time. They are secure jobs. We avoid conversations that could change our lives because they feel awkward. We make decisions not for growth but for security. And the funny part here is that's how most of us get stuck in a loop of doing everything right, yet something inside feels wrong. So when you become too practical, you stop taking emotional risk. And emotional risk are what that makes the life worth living, makes the life meaningful. Think about it. Saying I love you, fine, it's impractical at the very first instance. Starting a business when you already have a stable job is impractical. Changing careers at 35 is impractical. But all great things in life begin as a impractical idea. When we say I'm being practical, we often means we are avoiding uncertainty. Because the truth is that uncertainty is where the growth lives. Without it, life becomes predictable and safe, yes, of course, but dull, very dull. So, in trying to be practical, we often end up creating that emotional inefficiency. We spend less time feeling alive and more time managing fear. Now, let's look at it differently. True, very true that practicality isn't about avoiding emotions, it's about understanding it. Being practical means knowing where to use your head and when to listen to your gut. So it's about finding the right balance between the logic and instinct. Sorry. So let's take an example. So a parent from a middle class family takes a loan for their child higher education abroad. Logically, it's risky. The EMI could be high. The future is uncertain. But emotionally, they believe in their child's potential. And that emotion, that faith becomes the most practical decision they ever made. Emotions doesn't make us irrational, it gives a direction to our logic. Logic builds the path, but emotions, they decide where the paths lead. So people who are too practical usually they crave control. They want to predict outcomes, avoid surprises, and stay in control of everything. Life doesn't rewards control. It rewards adaptability. People who think that life rewards control are highly mistaken. So being too practical is like sailing only when the sea is calm. So you will never reach the lands because you'll never leave the shore. So we often mistake control for clarity, but they're not the same. Clarity means knowing what matters, and control means trying to manage what doesn't. So when you say, I'm being practical, ask yourself, are you being clear or are you just being afraid of taking a risk? So let's look at people who are successful, the ones we admire. Was it practical for Mr. Ratan Tata to launch a nano car when everyone said that there was no market for it? Or was it practical for Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam to dream of India's space program when the resources were so limited? Or even simpler, was it practical for someone in your family, like your dad, to leave their hometown with just a few hundred rupees in their pockets to build a better life? None of this was practical, but it was necessary. That's the thing about human beings. Our emotions show up possibilities, and logics can't. Really, they can't. So maybe you have noticed this in your life too. That one of the decisions you took in your life, and you ask yourself, "Am I being practical?" And if you would have, maybe you didn't take that trip, or didn't send that message, or didn't apply for that opportunity. Now look back and see, was that practicality, or was that fear dressed up as logic? We all have those moments we call sensible, but secretly we regret later. The goal isn't to stop being practical, but it is to redefine what practically really means. Because for most of us, the most powerful thing we can do is to choose the path that makes us feel alive, not what makes us feel safe. So here's a new way to look at it, that being practical isn't about being cold or emotionless or cautious. It's about using your emotions wisely. So ask yourself why this particular emotion exists, and not if why they should exist. Let fear warn you and not control you. Let passion guide you, but let reasons keep you grounded. So, the right balance between head and heart, that's the real practicality. So, the next time you call yourself practical, pause for a second. Ask yourself, am I being wise or just afraid? Because clarity in thought isn't about cutting emotions out, it's about understanding when emotion is the most practical choice.